A judge blocks Trump again, this time trans care for inmates. Plus, Tim Walz claims he gets young men, but does he? Although first, we're going to begin with the fireworks around the $9.4 billion rescissions package that would lock in the cuts made by Doge. Welcome to the Kerri Lane Show. I'm Kerri Lane. Some Republicans have vocalized their frustrations that this Doge package doesn't go far enough.
I can tell you right now, we can't cut enough foreign aid, and I think that's what Americans want to see. But if Republicans can't find the political will to vote for a $9 billion package, well, I think Republicans are going to be in trouble because the American people are very adamant about these Doge cuts.
Elon Musk has found himself at the center of this controversy and has most recently posted on X, quote, "If the massive deficit spending continues, there will only be money for interest payments and nothing else. No Social Security, no medical, no defense, nothing." Now, Elon is not the only one expressing concern.
I sympathize with Elon Musk's objections to the big, beautiful bill because it doesn't address the deficit. I love Doge and all, but it doesn't make a dent. It's a bit like asking to pay down your mortgage by occasionally skipping Starbucks. That being said, it is important to cut wasteful fraud and abuse, but we need to get that codified into law by Congress.
So let's take a look at what's on the chopping block. If we look at ground news, it'll show you it's foreign aid, public broadcasting, which includes NPR and PBS, and more. Now, critics say this barely scratches the surface. The $9.4 billion cut that's being proposed is just a fraction of Doge's $175 billion in savings so far. And the reason I show you this website is I've grown to love it because it shows you the facts, what's right down the middle. But you can also click on a tab that reads left, and it'll show you what left-wing media is saying about that very topic. Or if you click right, you will get the conservative viewpoint of it. If you want to check it out for yourself, just click on that link I provided for you down below. All right, turning now to Trump's big, beautiful bill, the media narrowly focusing on the Congressional Budget Office's projection.
The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office just released its highly anticipated analysis of the president's sweeping domestic policy bill. It projects the bill would increase the deficit by $2.4 trillion over the next decade, with nearly 11 million losing health insurance due to cuts in the plan.
So let's look now at whether or not we can actually trust the CBO as much as the media would like us to. In 2017, the CBO's projections for Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act were greatly underestimated. In fact, tax revenue was approximately $900 billion higher than the CBO projected. Then when Biden was in office, the CBO underestimated the federal budget deficit by $306 billion. Maybe we should take their gloomy forecast with a grain of salt. Here's Senate Majority Leader John Thune on what needs to happen for the bill to pass.
The president is the closer, and ultimately it'll be up to him to help bring some of these votes home. You got to start somewhere, and I think what this bill does is it makes an important down payment on ensuring that in the future, those deficits and those debt starts going downwards instead of continuing upwards like it is today.
And check this out. Despite the media claiming Trump would cause inflation to soar, the only thing soaring is his approval rating. It's actually higher than Obama and Bush at the same point in their second terms. So apparently the apocalypse has better polling numbers than what was anticipated. Okay, let's move to this. Federal Judge Royce Lambert is the latest judge to block Trump's agenda. He's ordering the administration to continue funding inmate transitions at taxpayer expense. Lambert argues the policy ignored medical needs and lacked reasoned analysis. Yet where's the reasoned case for taxpayers funding sex change treatments in prison? If you have the answer to that one, please enlighten me below. Let me show you one example of who Judge Lambert is protecting. Solo Nichols is a biological woman identifying as a man. Now, Nichols is getting testosterone therapy, chest binders, and male hygiene products while serving 19 years for armed robbery. Nichols told Judge Lambert that stopping testosterone and the thought of starting that monthly cycle again makes the inmate extremely uncomfortable. I'm pretty sure Nichols' victims were also extremely uncomfortable when they were being robbed. Now, while this news was unfolding, senators were debating the legitimacy of these nationwide injunctions as a panel of law professors testified. The check on executive power by these federal judges has become a point of contention, including Judge Boasberg's attempts to block this administration's deportation flights of violent criminals. Senator Josh Hawley argued the double standard is on full display.
So long as it is a Democrat president in office, then we should have no nationwide injunctions. If it's a Republican president, then this is absolutely fine, warranted, and called for. How can our system of law survive on those principles, Professor?
I think a system in which there are
Is
no
that blind?
meaningful constraints on the president is a very dangerous system
That's
of law.
not what you thought when Joe Biden. That is not what you thought when Joe Biden was
every president
You
is
said that is
constrained
not what
and
you
must
said.
be.
You said it was
Absolutely.
a travesty for the principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law. You also
The
said
Supreme
when
Court
Joe
senator
Biden
agreed,
was president. Wait a minute.
agreed
Wait a
9-0
minute.
with me on
you
that
also
case,
said
to
when
be
Joe
clear.
Biden was president, you said the idea that anyone would foreign shop to get a judge who would issue a nationwide injunction was just politicians, just judges looking like politicians in robes. Again, it threatened the underlying legal system. People were just trying to get the result they wanted. It was a travesty for the rule of law. But you're fine with all of that if it's getting the result that you want.
Conservatives see this for what it is, activist judges overriding the will of millions who back Trump. Now, Senator John Kennedy, he exposed Professor Kate Shaw for her glaring hypocrisy. Watch this.
She said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who are you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical
You're
of some
embarrassed
members of the
that
Supreme
you made
Court.
that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an
Senator,
officer
it
of
doesn't
the
sound
court.
like something that
You know
I
what
would
I'm
say.
embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in the classroom,
on
sir.
your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
Big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful of federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
The double standard is glaring. Now to Tim Walz, jazz hands, who had to ask his teenage son why Trump is connecting with young men.
I'm going to have a high school graduate with my son, Gus. And he's pretty in tune to this. But when he said this, he said, Dad, a lot of these young guys, especially, said they're not voting on the policy issues. They're doing it because there's a sense of excitement, a sense of thrill in this. I think Donald Trump understands belonging, understands groups. I mean, you look at it. He gives them a uniform, the red hat. He gives them some chants, some talking points, whatever. It's not that all that different than when we build sports teams in high school. You belong, you're part of this.
Oh, Tim, it's not about the hat. Young men aren't joining a cult. Let me say this in a way you can understand. They just prefer a quarterback who doesn't fumble the economy every quarter. Trump talks bluntly, fights back, and stands for opportunity. That's a winning playbook. Now, even some Democrats are starting to get it, like former South Carolina Rep. Joe Cunningham.
A lot of white men have, turned their backs on the Democratic Party, especially after 2024, because of two reasons. Number one, how the Democratic Party spoke to them, and number two, what they spoke about. If you're a white man who was not excited about Kamala Harris, you'd often be called either a racist or a sexist, instead of just the fact that you couldn't connect with Kamala or she wasn't speaking to anything that resonated. And secondly, the party needs to actually speak to this block of voters about what they care about. And a lot of it was the economy and being honest with them and restoring that credibility.
That's really the core of it, right? Democrats alienate voters by name calling instead of addressing real concerns like the economy. And it's not just rhetoric, it's their whole mindset. Look at this chart from Nate Silver. If you're not familiar with him, he does a lot of political analysis, and usually the Democrats love his polling. He just put this out. It's a chart showing the rating of self-reported mental health by parties. 51% of conservatives say their mental health is excellent, while 45% of liberals reported that their mental health is poor. So why the gap? Well, Republicans seem to focus on success and personal responsibility, right? Values that lift people up. Democrats push a victimhood narrative that drags everybody down and that mentally fuels the Democrats' neurotic image.
Right. Young people view the Democrat Party as being neurotic and risk averse and lecturing and paternalizing and also feministic. Now, James Carville said that point too, and he said the same thing. He goes, you got these preachy liberal women telling people, eat your peas, put down your cheeseburger, and telling men to shut up. And he goes, and that message is not play. Particularly this Nate Silver piece is really great because that word neurotic keeps coming up. Think of the whole Democrat message, right? Without us, like to your point, Bill, without us, you can't win. You need us or the oligarchs will come along and take everything from you.
Preachy is not a platform. It's a mood disorder. Democrats are responsible for the 2020 riots, right? During that whole summer, firebombing Teslas, hateful protests on college campuses, all the way to defending violent criminals overseas. It's chaos on demand. Democratic Congressman Richie Torres sees the problem, and he's warning the party's obsession with resisting Trump at all costs could backfire.
You know, there's a divide between what I would say two teams in the Democratic Party. There's team restraint and team resistance, right? There are those in team resistance who feel like we should react hysterically to everything that Donald Trump says or does. And then there are those who feel like we should pick and choose our battles and be strategic. But I worry that the momentum is on the side of hysterical, hyperbolic resistance.
Torres isn't alone in sounding the alarm. I mean, more and more Democrats are waking up to the fact that constant outrage is just turning off the very voters that they need the most right now.
The party seems to be resisting everything, including reality. And the reality is that there are some Trump policies that are wildly popular. You know, 97% of Americans think that immigrants who are violent criminals should be deported. There's, you know, a lot of his policies that are popular, like eliminating tips for those in the food and bev industry. The executive order he came out with regarding health care, you know, it may not have had as much teeth with it, but a lot of those points were wildly popular with Americans. And unfortunately, the Democratic Party seems to be just pushing against everything that Trump does and says.
Exactly. Resisting reality isn't brave, it is self-sabotage. And if you want to win young men back, how about you try some strength, maybe a little sanity and leadership, not slogans and shrieking and scolding. Otherwise, the left will just keep handing Trump the playbook to victory. Now, up next, I've got the shocking details the media won't tell you about the Boulder, Colorado attack. Plus, Scott Besson puts on a clinic when it comes to shutting down the media's economic spin. Let's hang out some more. It's been fun. Go ahead, click on that video you see now on your screen, and I'll see you over there.